Captain Lee Doyon stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Force warship Indomitable, watching the stars outside shift and bend in ways that hurt his eyes. The experimental quantum drive was pushing their ship through space faster than any human had ever traveled before. Red warning lights flashed across every control panel, and the ship groaned like a living thing in pain. "Drive shut down in 10 seconds, called out Chief Engineer Park Min-ho from his station. His hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to keep their experimental engine from tearing the ship apart. 8 seconds, 642 shutdown complete. The strange bending of space stopped. The stars became normal points of light again. Doyon felt his stomach settle as the ship's artificial gravity stabilized. Around him, his crew checked their stations and ran quick tests to make sure everything still worked. "Where are we?" Doyon asked. Navigation Officer Kim Sora studied her screens with a worried look. "Captain, we are very far from home. The computer says we traveled 847 light-years in one jump. That should be impossible." Doyon felt cold fear in his chest. They had volunteered to test humanity's first experimental faster-than-light drive. The plan was to jump 50 light-years out and 50 light-years back. Instead, they had somehow jumped almost 900 light-years into unknown space. "Can we get home?" he asked Min-ho. The engineer shook his head. "The quantum drive is badly damaged. I need at least a week to fix it, maybe more. We are stuck here until then." Sora suddenly stood up straighter at her station. "Captain, I am reading artificial structures in this system. Lots of them. Space stations, ships, and something that looks like a huge mining operation around the fourth planet." Dr. An Yoonji, their science officer, turned from her instruments. "The energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. These are not human structures. We have found alien civilization." Doyon felt his heart beat faster. First contact with alien life had always been humanity's dream and greatest fear. Now it was happening to his small crew, lost and damaged in unknown space. "Are they sending any signals?" he asked. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hana worked at her station. "I am picking up many transmissions, Captain. The signals are very advanced, using quantum frequencies we barely understand. The aliens have technology far beyond ours. 800 light-years away from Earth, the crew of the Indomitable faced the unknown. They were explorers who had become accidental ambassadors for all of humanity. Meanwhile, deep in the Kepler 442 system, Imperial Monitor Station Theta 7 detected the impossible. Commander Vexathara, a tall reptilian being with green scales and yellow eyes, stared at readings that made no sense. Her station monitored this region of space for the Valerian Galactic Empire, watching for pirates and rebels. "Sensor officer, run a full diagnostic," she ordered. "These readings cannot be correct." The younger alien at the sensor station, a member of the gray-skinned Corvin species, checked his instruments twice. "Commander, all systems are working perfectly. A vessel just appeared at the edge of our system using unknown technology. The energy signature shows space-time distortion beyond our science." Vexathara felt her scales tighten with worry. In 300 years of imperial expansion across the galaxy, they had never encountered technology they could not understand or copy. Every species they met was either primitive or used variations of known science. This was different. "Send an immediate alert to Admiral Kolovaneth," she ordered. "Priority 1. Unknown vessel using impossible technology detected in Sector 779. The message traveled through Imperial quantum networks at faster-than-light speed. Within minutes, it reached the command ship of Admiral Kolvaneth, a massive gray-skinned being from the dominant Sauroch species. He read the report while eating his morning meal of live fish. "Impossible technology?" he said to his aide. "There is no such thing. Send 3 corvettes to investigate. If this unknown vessel does not surrender immediately, destroy it." The Admiral had conquered 47 star systems for the Empire. He had never met an enemy that could not be defeated with superior firepower. This would be no different. Back on the Indomitable, Doyon made a decision that would change galactic history. "Hana, prepare a first contact message. Broadcast it on all frequencies in every Earth language we have." "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won from the tactical station, "should we not try to hide? If these aliens are hostile, we are one ship very far from any help." Dohyun looked at his young crew. They were scientists and explorers, not warriors. But they carried the hopes and dreams of all humanity with them. "We came to explore and learn. Hiding will teach us nothing. Send the message." Hana's fingers moved over her controls. The message went out in 17 different human languages. This is Captain Lee Do-yun of the Terran Defense Force ship Indomitable. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We wish to establish friendly contact with your civilization. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. The crew waited and watched their screens. Then Sora called out, "Captain, 3 ships are approaching. They just appeared from nowhere like they were invisible." "What kind of ships?" Do-hyun asked. "Military," Ji-won answered grimly. "Heavy weapons, military-grade shields. They are not coming to talk." The alien ships moved into attack formation around the human vessel. They were sleek and dangerous, built for war. Each one was twice the size of the Indomitable. "Incoming transmission," Hana reported. "Put it on speakers," Do-hyun ordered. A harsh reptilian voice filled the bridge. The words were in an alien language, but the meaning was clear from the tone. It was a demand for surrender. "They want us to power down our weapons and prepare to be boarded," Hana translated after running the signal through their computers. "Response?" asked Ji-won. Before Do-hyun could answer, the 3 alien ships opened fire. Streams of plasma energy, hot enough to vaporize steel, struck the Indomitable's hull. But something impossible happened. Instead of exploding, the human ship's experimental hull plating began to change. The metal seemed to flow like water, shifting and adapting to absorb the alien weapons fire. Warning lights stopped flashing. "The ship stabilized. Report," Do-hyun shouted. Minho stared at his engineering displays in wonder. "Captain, our adaptive hull plating is working beyond all expectations. It is learning from their weapons and changing to defend against them. We are not only surviving their attack, we are getting stronger." The bridge crew looked at each other in amazement. Their experimental technology was proving itself in the most dangerous test possible. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were still alive. Outside, the alien ships continued firing, but their weapons were becoming less effective with each shot. The human ship absorbed their attacks and learned from them. For the first time in Imperial history, a single unknown vessel was fighting 3 military ships and winning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was unlike any species they had ever encountered. The Indomitable moved through space like a dancer avoiding clumsy partners. Each time the alien ships fired their plasma weapons, the human vessel seemed to know where the shots would go before they arrived. Captain Do-hyun watched in amazement as his ship twisted and turned, avoiding most of the enemy fire while its hull adapted to absorb what it could not dodge. "How are we doing this?" he asked Minho. The engineer's hands flew over his controls, watching systems that were performing far beyond their design limits. "The ship's AI is learning faster than we ever thought possible. It studies their weapons, their targeting systems, even the way they fly. Then it predicts what they will do next." Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won looked up from his tactical station with wide eyes. "Captain, our targeting computers have analyzed their ships completely. I know exactly where to hit them to disable their weapons without killing the crews." Do-hyun felt proud of his crew and their technology, but also worried. "Return fire, but do not destroy them. Disable only." The Indomitable's weapons fired once. The beam was perfectly aimed and controlled. It struck the lead alien ship and cut through its weapon systems like a knife through paper. The alien vessel stopped shooting and began drifting helplessly. Inside the Imperial corvette Sword of Valor, Fleet Captain Morganthu stared at his dead weapon controls. His ship, built with the finest Imperial technology, had been disabled by one shot from the unknown vessel. The precision was impossible. The aliens had cut through his defenses without harming a single crew member. "Status report," he shouted to his crew. "Weapons offline. Engines offline. Life support working. No casualties," his tactical officer reported. "Captain, they could have destroyed us easily, but they chose not to kill us." Morganthu had fought in dozens of battles for the Empire. He had never seen technology this advanced or enemies this skilled who still showed mercy. It frightened him more than any threat to his life. "Send an emergency signal to Admiral Kulvaneth," he ordered. "Tell him we need immediate reinforcement. This is not a normal enemy." The other 2 Imperial ships tried to retreat, but the human vessel was faster. It appeared in front of them, moving in ways that should have been impossible. 2 more precise shots disabled both ships without harming their crews. On the Indomitable, Dr. An Yoonji worked frantically at her science station. "Captain, I am receiving data transmissions from the alien ships. Our computer systems are breaking into their networks and learning their language. What are they saying?" Do-hyun asked. "Emergency calls for help. They are part of something called the Valerian Galactic Empire. The Empire controls hundreds of star systems and many different alien species. Yunji's face grew pale as she read more. Captain, this empire conquers other species and forces them to serve. They have enslaved entire civilizations. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hana looked up from her station. I am intercepting more transmissions. Large numbers of warships are coming to this system. They will arrive in less than 6 hours. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung, working at a secondary engineering panel, made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, our computer systems have not just learned their language. We have accessed their data networks. I can see their military plans, their star maps, even their history files. What do you see? Do-hyun asked. Tae-hyung's voice was quiet with shock. They have conquered over 200 different species in the last 500 years. Any planet that resists is destroyed. Any species that fights back is enslaved or wiped out completely. The bridge became very quiet. The crew of the Indomitable had expected to find alien civilizations among the stars. They had hoped for friends and peaceful contact. Instead, they had found a galaxy-spanning empire built on conquest and slavery. Navigation Officer Kim Sora studied the star charts they had stolen from the alien computers. Captain, this empire is huge. It controls most of this region of space. Earth is far outside their territory, but if they learn about us... She did not need to finish. Everyone understood. If this empire discovered Earth, humanity would face conquest or destruction. Admiral Kolovaneth received the emergency messages from his disabled ships while reviewing invasion plans for a nearby system. The reports made no sense. One unknown vessel had defeated 3 Imperial corvettes without taking any damage. Worse, it had shown mercy by not destroying them. Mercy is weakness, he said to his aide. This unknown species does not understand how war works. We will teach them. The Admiral commanded Task Force Dominator, 47 of the Empire's most advanced warships. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together they could eliminate entire fleets. Set course for the Kepler 442 system, he ordered. Maximum speed. We will arrive in 6 hours and destroy this unknown vessel. Make sure every species in the Empire knows what happens to those who resist us. Back on the Indomitable, the crew worked desperately to understand their situation. Dr. Yunji studied the alien technology they had captured, while Minho tried to repair their quantum drive. They needed to get home and warn Earth about the Empire. But as Yunji learned more about Imperial technology, she made a disturbing discovery. Captain, their computers contain information about hundreds of enslaved species. Many of them tried to resist the Empire but failed because they fought alone. What do you mean? Do-hyun asked. Each species the Empire conquered was isolated and outnumbered. They had no allies, no way to coordinate with other resistance groups. The Empire defeats its enemies by keeping them separated. Cho Tae-hyung looked up from his computer interface. Dr. Yunji is right. I can see evidence of resistance movements throughout Imperial space, but they cannot communicate with each other. The Empire blocks all unauthorized transmissions between star systems. Hana's communications equipment suddenly came alive with activity. Captain, I am receiving hidden transmissions. Encrypted signals using old Imperial communication codes. Someone is trying to contact us. Can you decode the message? Do-hyun asked. Working on it now. Hana's fingers moved quickly over her controls. After several minutes, she looked up with excitement. Captain, it is from a group calling themselves the Corvin Resistance. They are descendants of one of the first species the Empire conquered. They have been fighting for their freedom for over 300 years. What do they want? Do-hyun asked. They want to know who we are and how we defeated Imperial ships. They are offering to share information about Empire weaknesses in exchange for our help. Do-hyun looked around at his crew. They were explorers and scientists, not warriors. But they carried advanced technology that could change the balance of power in this galaxy. They also carried human values of freedom and justice. Send a reply, he decided. Tell them we are humans from Earth. Tell them we believe all intelligent species should be free. Ask them what they need to fight the Empire. As Hana sent the message, Sora detected new ships entering the system. Captain, massive fleet approaching. 47 Imperial warships, including battleships and cruisers. They will be here in 4 hours. Ji-won checked his tactical displays.
Captain, even with our adaptive technology, we cannot fight that many ships.
They have enough firepower to destroy planets. Minho looked up from his engineering station with frustration. The quantum drive will need at least 2 more days to repair. We cannot run. Do-hyun realized they faced an impossible choice. They could try to hide and hope the Imperial fleet would not find them. They could surrender and probably be destroyed or captured, or they could stand and fight, knowing they were outnumbered 47-1. But as he looked at the data about enslaved species and resistance movements, he made a decision that would change galactic history. The crew of the Indomitable would not run or hide. They would show the galaxy that the Empire could be challenged. All hands, prepare for battle, he announced over the ship's communication system. We are going to teach this Empire what happens when they threaten free people. Outside, Task Force Dominator approached like a storm of metal and fire, confident in their overwhelming advantage. They had no idea they were about to face something the galaxy had never seen before: humans fighting for freedom. The massive Imperial fleet arrived in the Kepler 442 system, like a wall of metal and weapons. Admiral Kolveneth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his 47 warships spread out in perfect attack formation. Each ship was 3 times larger than the unknown vessel they had come to destroy. "Where is the enemy?" he asked his sensor officer. "Admiral, we can see the ship clearly on visual sensors, but it does not appear on any of our targeting computers. It is like the vessel exists and does not exist at the same time." Kolveneth studied the main screen. The unknown ship hung in space before them, clearly visible but somehow invisible to their weapon systems. Impossible. All ships open fire on visual targeting. 47 Imperial warships fired at once. The space around the human vessel filled with enough energy to destroy a small moon. But when the light faded, the Indomitable was still there, completely undamaged. Captain Do-hyun felt his ship absorb the massive attack and grow stronger. "Minho, report. Captain, our adaptive systems have learned from their entire fleet. Every weapon they have, every tactic they use, we now understand completely. They cannot hurt us anymore." Dr. An Eunji looked up from her science station with amazement. "Captain, our computer systems have done something incredible. While their weapons were hitting us, we accessed every ship in their fleet. We now have complete copies of their databases, star maps, and communication networks." Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won studied his tactical displays. "Captain, I can disable their entire fleet without harming a single crew member. Their ships are built with weaknesses we can exploit." Do-hyun thought carefully. They could destroy the Imperial fleet easily, but that would make them conquerors like the Empire itself. Instead, he chose a different path. "Ji-hwan, disable their flagship only. Leave the rest of the fleet alone, then send them a message." The Indomitable fired one perfectly aimed shot. Admiral Kolveneth's massive battleship suddenly went dark as all its systems shut down. The ship was completely helpless but undamaged. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hana opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. "This is Captain Lee Do-hyun of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We have disabled your flagship to prove we could destroy your entire fleet if we wanted to. We do not want to kill you. We want you to stop enslaving other species and leave this system. You have 1 hour to decide." The Imperial fleet did not know what to do. They had never faced an enemy that could defeat them so easily but chose not to destroy them. Many ship captains began to question their orders. On his disabled flagship, Admiral Kolveneth raged at his helpless situation. But he was also afraid. In 3 centuries of Imperial expansion, they had never encountered technology this advanced. This unknown species could end the Empire if they wanted to. While the Imperial fleet tried to decide what to do, the crew of the Indomitable was already changing the galaxy. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung had used their access to Imperial networks to contact resistance movements throughout Empire space. "Captain," he reported, "I have established contact with freedom fighters on over 30 planets. They have been waiting for someone with the technology to challenge the Empire. They want to coordinate with us." Dr. Yunji had been studying the captured Imperial data. "Captain, I have learned something important about their society. The Empire rules through fear and overwhelming force. When that fails, their entire system of control begins to break down." Navigation Officer Kim Sora plotted courses through Imperial space. "Captain, their supply routes are poorly defended. If we could disrupt their logistics, we could weaken their ability to control distant systems." Do-hyun realized they had accidentally become more than just lost explorers. They had become the spark that could ignite a galaxy-wide revolution. "Change of plans," he announced. "We are not going home yet. We are going to help these enslaved species win their freedom. The Indomitable disappeared from sensors while remaining visible to the naked eye, a trick their adaptive technology had learned from Imperial stealth systems. They began moving through Imperial space like a ghost, striking supply convoys and military installations with impossible precision. Each attack followed the same pattern. The human ship would appear from nowhere, disable Imperial forces without killing anyone and steal their cargo and information. Then it would vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The stolen supplies were delivered to resistance movements who had been starving for weapons and equipment. Admiral Kolvaneth found himself hunting an enemy he could not catch or predict. The unknown vessel seemed to know where Imperial ships would be before they arrived there. Every trap he set was avoided. Every ambush was turned against his own forces. Worse, the attacks were spreading. Resistance groups across the Empire were becoming bolder and better equipped. Planets that had been quiet for centuries were erupting in rebellion. The unknown ship was not just fighting the Empire, it was teaching others how to fight. The breakthrough came when Dr. Yunji successfully contacted the Corvan resistance movement directly. The Corvans had been fighting the Empire for over 300 years, keeping their culture alive in hidden settlements throughout Imperial space. Through encrypted quantum communications, she learned the true history of Imperial expansion. Each species that had been conquered had tried to fight alone. Each had fallen because they had no allies and no way to coordinate with other resistance groups. "Captain," she reported, "the Corvans believe we can change that. With our technology, we can create a communication network that connects all resistance movements." For the first time, they could work together. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hanna had been working on the technical problems. "I can establish quantum encrypted links between resistance cells. The Empire will not be able to block or trace the communications. Every enslaved species could coordinate their actions." Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung had an even more ambitious idea. "Captain, we can do more than just connect the resistance groups. We can share our adaptive technology with them. Imagine if every resistance ship could learn and adapt like we do." Do-hyun saw the possibilities and the dangers. They could create a galaxy-wide revolution that would free billions of enslaved beings. But they could also start a war that would destroy countless worlds. The decision was made for him when intercepted Imperial communications revealed Emperor Vashatai's final solution. The aging dictator had authorized the use of planet-killer weapons against any system where the unknown ship had been seen. If the Empire could not capture or destroy the human vessel, they would sterilize entire star systems to prevent rebellion from spreading. "They are going to destroy innocent worlds just to stop us," Do-hyun said quietly. "Captain," Yunji said, "we have become the hope of this galaxy. If we run now, billions of people will die and the Empire will become even more brutal to prevent future rebellions." Do-hyun looked around at his crew. They were still the same explorers and scientists who had left Earth to test an experimental drive. But they had learned something important about themselves and about humanity. When faced with injustice and oppression, they could not walk away. "All right," he decided. "We finish what we started, but we do it smart. Hana, send a message to every resistance group we have contacted. Tell them to prepare for coordinated action. Tae-hyung, begin sharing our adaptive technology, but only with safeguards to prevent it from being misused." "What about the planet-killer weapons?" asked Ji-hwan. Do-hyun smiled grimly. "We are going to teach Emperor Vashatai that some weapons are too dangerous to use. Even for him." The Indomitable set course for the heart of Imperial space, no longer hiding from the Empire but openly challenging it. Behind them, resistance movements on dozens of worlds began preparing for the largest coordinated rebellion in galactic history. The single human ship had become the catalyst for revolution. The galaxy would never be the same. The human ship had become a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, enslaved species whispered stories of the mysterious vessel that could defeat Imperial fleets without killing anyone. For the first time in centuries, they dared to believe that freedom was possible. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung worked day and night to share human technology with resistance movements. Using the Indomitable's manufacturing systems, he created adaptive weapon upgrades and communication devices that could learn and improve themselves. Each package was delivered secretly to freedom fighters who had spent generations hiding in the shadows. "Captain," he reported to Do-hyun, "I have successfully distributed our technology to resistance cells on 43 planets. Their ships and weapons are now learning and adapting just like ours. The Empire's technological advantage is disappearing. Dr. An Yunji had become the voice of human diplomacy, establishing contact with over 30 different alien species. Through encrypted channels, she coordinated with Corvan strategists, Felinar engineers, and Zephyrian pilots who had never been able to work together before. The resistance movements are ready to act, she told the captain. For 300 years they have planned and prepared. All they needed was someone to unite them and give them the tools to fight. The first major test came at the Keth Moran system, a strategic Imperial stronghold that controlled shipping routes to 12 sectors. The system had 3 heavily defended planets, 2 military space stations, and a fleet of 30 Imperial warships. Captain Do Yun planned the attack carefully. The Indomitable would appear to assault the Imperial fleet directly, drawing their attention and firepower. Meanwhile, resistance forces would strike the orbital platforms while enslaved workers on the mining colonies would stage coordinated uprisings. The timing must be perfect, he explained to his crew. Light takes minutes to travel between planets in this system. If our attacks are not synchronized, the Empire will defeat us one group at a time. Navigation Officer Kim Sora had calculated the precise timing needed. Captain, I have plotted jump points that will allow us to coordinate our actions across light minutes of space. The resistance forces will strike their targets at exactly the moment we engage the fleet. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won studied the tactical situation. Captain, this will be the largest battle against Imperial forces in over 2 centuries. If we succeed, it will prove that the Empire can be defeated. If we fail, we will not fail, Do Yun said firmly. We have something the Empire has never faced before. We have people fighting for their freedom instead of conquest. The battle began when the Indomitable appeared in the center of the Keth Moran system, challenging the entire Imperial Defense Force. 30 warships immediately moved to surround and destroy the single human vessel. At the exact same moment, resistance fighters struck the orbital weapons platforms. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae suddenly appeared, their adaptive weapons cutting through Imperial defenses with impossible precision. On the mining colonies below, enslaved workers who had been secretly organized by Corvan agents rose up simultaneously. They seized control of communication centers, power plants, and transportation hubs, cutting off Imperial forces from their support systems. Admiral Kolvaneth, who had been hunting the human ship for weeks, found himself commanding a battle across an entire star system. His tactical computers, designed to handle fleet actions, could not process the complexity of coordinated attacks happening on dozens of fronts at once. How are they doing this? He demanded of his staff. How can they coordinate attacks across light minutes of space with perfect timing? His tactical officer, a young Saurok who had studied human transmissions, had a theory. Admiral, I believe they are using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. They can send orders faster than light itself. The realization terrified Kolvaneth. If the unknown species could communicate instantly across any distance, they could coordinate resistance movements throughout the entire galaxy. The Empire's strategy of keeping rebellions isolated and small would become useless. The Battle of Keth Moran lasted 6 hours and ended with complete victory for the resistance forces. The Indomitable had disabled the entire Imperial fleet without destroying a single ship. The orbital platforms had been captured intact with their weapons and supplies. Most importantly, 3 planets had been liberated with minimal casualties. But the real victory was not military. It was psychological. News of the successful rebellion spread through Imperial space at the speed of light, carried by the same communication networks the Resistance had captured. On the Indomitable, Dr. Yunji monitored transmissions from across the galaxy. Captain, we are receiving reports of uprisings on over 200 worlds. The success at Keth Moran has inspired rebellions everywhere. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hanna tracked Imperial responses. The Empire is recalling fleets from frontier sectors to protect their core worlds. They are losing control of their outer territories. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung had been analyzing captured Imperial technology. Captain, I have learned something important about their planet killer weapons. They require enormous amounts of power and rare materials. The Empire can only use them a few times before exhausting their resources. Captain Do-hyun realized they had reached a turning point. The Empire was weakening, but a wounded enemy was often the most dangerous. Emperor Vashti would use his most terrible weapons before allowing his empire to collapse. The decision came sooner than expected. Intercepted Imperial communications revealed that the Emperor himself was traveling to the capital system of Valor Prime with the entire Imperial Guard fleet. He planned to use planet-killer weapons against rebellion leaders publicly, as an example to frighten other worlds into submission. He is going to destroy entire planets to save his empire, Yunji said quietly. How many people live in the target systems? Tohyun asked. Billions, she replied. Men, women, children of dozens of different species. All innocent civilians. Do-hyun felt the weight of the galaxy's future on his shoulders. They had started a revolution that was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Now they had to finish it before millions of innocent people died. Change course for Valor Prime, he ordered. We are going to end this war at its source. Captain, Navigation Officer Sora said carefully, Valor Prime is the most heavily defended system in the galaxy. The Emperor's Guard has over 3,000 ships, including planet killers and superweapons we have never seen before. I know, Do-hyun replied. That is exactly where we need to go. Lieutenant Commander Ji-won looked at the tactical displays showing the massive Imperial fleet gathering at their capital. Captain, are we really going to challenge the entire Empire with one ship? Do-hyun looked around at his crew. They were still the same explorers who had accidentally jumped into alien space weeks ago, but they had learned something about themselves and about humanity. When fighting for justice and freedom, humans could accomplish impossible things. We are not going alone, he said. Send a message to every resistance cell, every freedom fighter, every enslaved world. Tell them we are making our final attack on the Empire's heart. Tell them to strike at their oppressors when our battle begins. What if they ask how we can possibly win against such overwhelming odds? Asked Hana. Do-hyun smiled. Tell them we are human. Tell them we do not give up when fighting for what is right. Tell them that freedom is worth any risk. As the Indomitable set course for the final battle, resistance movements throughout the galaxy prepared for the largest coordinated uprising in history. The revolution that had begun with one lost ship was about to culminate in the capital system of the Empire itself. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if freedom could triumph over tyranny. The Valor Prime system was the jewel of the Valyrian Empire, home to 50 billion beings across 12 planets and hundreds of orbital cities. As the Indomitable approached the capital system, Captain Do-hyun could see the massive Imperial fleet spread out like a metal wall between the planets. 3,000 ships, Navigation Officer Kim Sora reported quietly, including 12 planet-killer vessels and the Emperor's personal dreadnought. It is 10 times larger than any ship we have ever seen. Emperor Vashatai stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching his enemies approach. The unknown vessel that had caused so much trouble was finally coming to him. He would destroy it personally and broadcast the execution across every world in his empire. One ship against 3,000, he said to his admirals. When this is over, every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who challenge the Empire. But Captain Do-hyun had not come to fight a conventional battle. As the Imperial fleet moved to surround his ship, Dr. An Eunji began broadcasting on every communication frequency in the galaxy. Citizens of the Empire, her voice carried to billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. We are Dr. An Eunji of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We are about to show you the truth about your rulers. What followed was the complete Imperial archives, broadcast simultaneously to every planet, space station, and ship in Empire space. 3 centuries of hidden history flowed across the galaxy like a flood. The real records of conquest and genocide, the secret experiments on enslaved populations, the brutal suppression of peaceful species who had never threatened anyone. Most shocking of all were the personal records of Imperial leaders, including Emperor Vashatai himself. His private communications revealed his contempt for all non-Sauroch species and his plans to eventually eliminate them entirely. On thousands of worlds, beings who had been told they were protected by the Empire learned they were actually marked for extermination. Imperial crews who had believed they served a just cause discovered they were tools of genocide. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Imperial ships throughout the galaxy began receiving reports of mutinies, desertions, and outright rebellions among their own crews. The Empire's greatest weapon had always been the loyalty of its soldiers. In minutes, that weapon was destroyed. Impossible. Emperor Vashatai raged as reports flooded in from across his empire.
Destroy that ship. Destroy it now!
3,000 Imperial warships opened fire at once. The space around the Indomitable filled with enough energy to destroy moons and burn planets. But the human ship did something that defied all understanding of physics and war. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Captain, our adaptive systems are no longer just learning from their weapons. We are controlling them. The massive Imperial attack struck the Indomitable and was absorbed, analyzed, and redirected in microseconds. The human ship became a living mirror, taking the Empire's own firepower and sending it back improved and focused. Imperial ships found their own weapons turned against them with impossible precision. Vessels that had fired at the human ship were disabled by their own energy, reflected back with perfect accuracy. In minutes, hundreds of Imperial warships were helpless, defeated by their own attacks. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won coordinated the most complex tactical maneuver in galactic history. Captain, I am using their own targeting computers against them. Every ship that fires at us becomes unable to fire at anything else. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hana broadcast the quantum signature for human adaptive technology to resistance networks across the galaxy. Suddenly, ships and weapons on hundreds of worlds began exhibiting the same impossible capabilities as the Indomitable. The technological revolution that had begun with one human vessel spread across the galaxy in minutes. Resistance fighters who had been hiding in caves and asteroids suddenly found their makeshift weapons learning and improving. Imperial forces who had seemed invincible discovered their enemies growing stronger with every battle. Emperor Vashitai made his final desperate choice. If he could not defeat the unknown enemy, he would destroy everything rather than lose his empire. Activate the planet killers. Target the capital worlds of every rebellious sector. 12 massive weapons, each capable of cracking planets, powered up to fire at populated worlds. Billions of innocent beings faced extinction in the Emperor's final rage. But Captain Do-yeon had planned for this moment. Minho, are you ready? Chief Engineer Park Minho smiled grimly at his controls. Captain, our adaptive systems have been studying their planet killer technology since the battle began. We can do more than just deflect their weapons. We can absorb them. The planet killers fired, sending streams of world-destroying energy toward populated planets. The Indomitable moved between the weapons and their targets, absorbing energy that should have shattered worlds. But instead of being destroyed, the human ship grew brighter and more powerful. The absorbed energy was converted and redistributed through the quantum communication network to resistance fleets throughout the galaxy. Incredible, Dr. Yoonji reported. We have taken their ultimate weapons and turned them into power sources for the resistance. Ships across the galaxy are receiving the energy they need to complete their uprisings. Emperor Vashitai watched his empire collapse in real time. On every screen around him, reports came in of successful rebellions powered by the energy from his own planet-killer weapons. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were declaring independence. Species that had been scattered and broken were reuniting and rebuilding. The final blow came when his own crew, learning the truth about Imperial history, turned against him. Admiral Kolvaneth, who had hunted the human ship across the galaxy, removed Vashitai from command and surrendered the remaining Imperial forces. The war was over. In the months that followed, Captain Do-hyun found himself serving reluctantly as humanity's first galactic ambassador. Working with Dr. Yoonji and representatives from dozens of former Imperial species, he helped establish the Confederation of Free Worlds. The new government was built on principles the Empire had never understood: cooperation instead of conquest, adaptation instead of domination, freedom instead of slavery. Engineering Officer Cho Tae-hyung led technological integration programs that shared human adaptive systems throughout the galaxy, but with safeguards that prevented any single species from becoming dominant. Every world would have the tools to defend itself, but none would have the power to conquer others. Navigation Officer Kim Sora charted new trade routes connecting former Imperial territories in networks of mutual support rather than exploitation. The galaxy that had been divided by conquest became united by cooperation. Chief Communications Officer Lee Hana established the Galactic Communication Network, using quantum entanglement to allow instant communication between any 2 points in the galaxy. Never again would resistance movements be isolated and unable to coordinate. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won helped train the new Confederation Defense Force, teaching former enemies to work together against threats to freedom rather than fighting each other for dominance. Finally, after 2 years of helping establish the new galactic order, the Indomitable prepared to return to Earth. Captain Do-hyun stood on his bridge, looking at the star charts that would guide them home. "The quantum drive is fully repaired," reported Minho. "We can reach Earth in a single jump." "Are you sure we should leave?" asked Dr. Yoonji. "There is still so much work to do here." Do-hyun looked around at his crew. They had become more than explorers. They had become the founders of a new age among the stars. But they were still human and Earth was still home. "We have taught the galaxy to stand on its own," he said. "Now we need to go home and prepare humanity for its place in the galactic community." As Earth appeared on their main screen days later, Dr. Yoonji made one final observation. "Captain, we left Earth as explorers testing an experimental drive. We return as ambassadors carrying news that humanity is no longer alone." "And what kind of news is it?" asked Do-hyun. She smiled. "The best kind. We have learned that the galaxy is full of friends we have not met yet, and we have proven that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our weapons. It is our refusal to accept that injustice and oppression are inevitable." The Indomitable approached Earth orbit, carrying with it the promise of a new future. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as liberators. The galaxy had not been ready for them, but perhaps more importantly, they had proven ready for the galaxy. Behind them, across hundreds of light years, free worlds worked together to build something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest, adaptation rather than domination, freedom rather than fear. The revolution that had begun with one lost ship had become a transformation that would last for generations. The galaxy would never be the same.